everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Today we're going to tackle the electrical on our 1945 2N loader tractor. Let's see how that goes. So here's a lot of the stuff that we have to get installed, and then we can start running wires and stuff around. There's quite a few little bits and pieces here, but we'll get them all in. Some of them are going to be interesting because, like this light switch, the hole in the dash is a lot bigger than the stem of this, so we'll have to I don't know, come up with something with a washer or something, but we'll figure it all out. So I'm going to go ahead and get all this stuff hung on there, and I'll be back in a minute. So here we go. We got two new gauges in, a horn button, a headlight switch, indicator light for the alternator, and an ignition switch. Over here, here's the horn. We've got the actual electric contactor for the starter switch all fixed up. And this thing came here with a modified coil running an external or a round coil, I guess, separate from the integral coil that you'd normally find in a front distributor tractor. So what the heck, it worked. We had it running like that. So for now, we'll leave it like that. Although I will run a wire through the tube down to the front just in case we ever decide to change it back. Okay, now we're going to get the wire tube ready. That'll be the first thing we put on. It's got these old car wires in it. We're going to get them out of there. And this one leg of it needs to be straightened out a little bit. This one seems okay. Okay, this is pretty straightforward. We're going to start feeding them through. The longest one is number 4, then number 3, and then number 1 and number 2 are the same length. Alrighty. And then once I got them all in, I leave like that, a couple of inches sticking out. That's fine for now. And I've numbered them at this end. I don't always do that. It's pretty easy actually to kind of pull on them and see what one moves to identify them. But again, with this thing having this bloody Jungle Jim loader on it, we'll just make our lives easier by numbering them. Now what we're going to do is go around them and just put a little silicone grease on there, and we can slide the terminal boots over. Okay, now we got to get some actual wire through here. We need the charge wire, the field wire, and an ignition wire, like I said, for in case down the road we decide to run the ignition back how it was designed to run. Let's use this thing. I've had it for years. I've never even opened it. So what we're going to need here is we're going to get 7 feet of this red wire. That's number 10. That'll be our charge wire. You're going to get 7 feet of that. That's half of it, right? There's 14 feet. So we'll get 7 feet of that. We're going to need 2 lengths. I'll get, probably use some of this 20 to run the alternator light. And we're going to need some 16 for the just in case ignition feed. So we'll get 7 feet of this and 8 feet each of this stuff. So we get these 3 taped together. For now, we're just going to tape it enough so that everything inside the tube will be taped, and we leave at least 10 inches bare at this end, because we have to. These two are going to go over the alternator, and this one's going to go the other way down to the distributor. We could tape those up a little further if we want. Now what we got to do is get it in there. Okay, so I've run a single piece of 10 gauge through here to act as a fish, and we're going to attach that to it. I might rub a little hand soap or something on it, because once it gets down in here where all these plug wires are, it gets a little congested. But we should be able to get it through. Now we have to install the little holder for the number 1 and number 2 plug wires. It goes right down in here on this bolt there. I would have put it on before I put the alternator on, but well, at that time I didn't have it. So we're putting it on now. Okay, I guess we can put this thing on now. This set of wires looks a lot better than, remember, but I think it was that one. The ones we put on there are all 18 inches too long. Yeah, these ones look a lot better. We'll find out in a minute though. All right, there's that all done. Down there we've got our high tension leads all nicely arranged, clear of everything. Now we can go ahead and get these ones hooked up. So what we're going to do, we're going to put a spade terminal on this little guy, and he's going to go to, it's hard to see, terminal number 1 there on the alternator. Terminal number 2, we're going to make a little jumper wire and go to the hot stud. Okay, so to recap, we've got our charge wire to the charge stud. The wire that comes, the brown wire that comes out of the tube here, goes to terminal number 1 on the alternator. And from terminal number 2, we make a little jumper that goes back to the power stud. Now what we're going to do, I'm just going to, with a piece of tape, I'm going to tack this, our backup ignition wire to the harness here. And we're going to put a piece of split loom over it, just up into the end of the tube over there. We've got our little harness running up through the wire tube here. You'll see that there's a relief in the steering box and a little cutout in the battery tray to run that up through there. Now we can make our connections at the dash. This here, this big red one, that's the charge wire coming from the charge stud of our alternator. That goes to the load side of our ammeter. The ammeter will be marked on the back. One terminal will be B for battery, and the other one will be L for load, or it may say a number of different things, A for accessory. Just make sure B for battery. So long as you have one that says B for battery, the other one is what you want to put everything on. So we're going to get our charge wire on the load stud. The other 2 wires in that little harness are our backup ignition wire. So if we ever decide to replace this round coil with the square coil that should be on top of the distributor, we've got a wire in there to power it. So that just gets, we just stick that down in behind that bracket for now. Man, I'm sorry, it's dark behind the dash and it's bright out there and the phone is getting confused. The third wire in this is the pilot wire, or the switching wire for the voltage regulator. And it comes up, and you can see it right there. It comes out and it gets attached to one side of our indicator light. Now, once we've done that, we can hook up our ignition switch. So again, the black wire from the ignition switch goes to the load stud of our ammeter. The yellow wire of our ignition switch goes to the hot side of our ballast resistor. And then I put a gang terminal on there so I could double it up. And I also use this ignition feed to power up our alternator light. So ignition power comes down here to this terminal. It goes through the resistor to the ignition, which we haven't hooked up yet. And from this splice, or whatever you want to call it here, this terminal, we power our alternator circuit. Here's the next thing we've done. I've added 2 jumpers from the load stud of the ammeter. One down to the headlight switch, one over here to the horn switch. The headlight switch has a built-in fuse, so the entire lighting system on this tractor will be protected by that fuse. I chose not to put a fuse in the horn switch. It's certainly up to you. If you were doing this, you could use an inline fuse holder instead of this little jumper wire. I'll live dangerously and do it that way. And those jumpers are both 14 gauge wire. Now we got to figure out the wires on our headlight switch. So how we want this to work is that it's a 2-position headlight switch. So parking light, headlight, right? So how we want this to work is when we pull it to the first position, we get our headlights and we send power to the back for our tail light and work light. And when we pull it to the second position, all those lights stay on, but our emergency flashers start flashing. So here's how we do it. On the first click, these 2 over here, well, there's actually 3 that are live. 1, 2, 3. On the second click, those two stay live. That one goes dead. We don't want that one. But that back one on this side comes to life. So this guy here is going to be for our emergency flasher. And these two over here are going to be, this one's going to run the front lights. And this one's going to run the back lights. And that's how we'll do it. Now we're going to lay in the wire for the lights. And as we know, wire is expensive. So anytime I see an old vacuum cleaner or something, vacuum cleaners have nice long cords, right? So I cut the cords off vacuum cleaners or appliances or whatever I see laying around. And that gets me nice conductors that I can use on these tractors. So we're going to use this one here to run our lighting power to the back. I'll show you how we're going to do that. First thing we're going to do is harvest these 3 clips off this old Ferguson. So we've left about a foot of it back here. And I've got it run through the clips up to the front of the steering box. I only got 3 clips off that old Ferguson, but I managed to find one more in my junk. Now, if you don't have the exact right clips, you can order them from the places that sell Ford tractor restoration parts. Or you can, I'm sure, find something at an auto parts store or a home improvement place that would work. You could probably just make them out of some thin tin if you wanted to. Now we can run our wire up around. I put another couple of wire clips on there. Just some junk I had laying around. Again, auto parts store, home improvement joint. There's all, even Amazon, you could probably find something. And then down over around the headlight switch. So what we're going to do, we're going to cut it off. You know, give us a little bit of extra so we know we got lots to work with. And then we'll start stripping and making connections. Now we're going to strip the case off of this from, I don't know, about here to the end. Now that we've got that done, we're going to look at our flasher here, and they'll be marked usually battery and load. But if yours isn't marked, that's the orientation. When the prongs are up, battery on the left, load on the right. So we're going to put a terminal on this one and push it onto the load side of the flasher. I cut the green wire off in the harness, or our cord. I cut off the green wire and terminated it on the load side of the flasher. So now what I had left wasn't long enough, so I got this piece of brown wire and we made a jumper to go over to the terminal on our headlight switch. That was what we decided we needed for our flasher circuit. And now these two here are for the tail light and the work light on the back of the tractor. So we just twisted them together and put them in a ringlet. Now we'll get this pulled back out of here and taped back up, and we can terminate everything properly. We finished our dash wiring off by making our second harness here. And this one includes the charge wire that goes from the battery side of the ammeter down through here, and it'll connect to this here, which is the battery stud of the starter switch. We also have our ignition feed going down. Sorry, out of frame. We've got our ignition feed going down, and it goes and feeds our ignition coil. We've got our horn wire going down into this, and it goes to our horn. And the last thing we've got is our headlight wire coming from the headlight switch. And it takes a long journey because of the loader down the outside of the spark plug tube and out the loader frame, out to the top where the headlights will be. Now we can get the battery sat in there and start working out our cables. This one is a Group 26R. We got it anchored down. Now we can go ahead and get our cables laid in. I got the battery cables installed. That'll kind of vary depending on what you're doing, because you You may have some battery cables of existing length that you need to snake around a little bit to use up the length to get them between your 2 points. Or you may have to have an idea which way you want them to go and go buy some custom ones at the auto parts place, right? But for us, we worked with what we had. So here's our negative cable. I always have a disconnect switch on these things, and it goes down to this dash bolt down there. That was a cable that we just had kicking around. And because this is 12 volt now, we can get away with 4 gauge or even 6 gauge cables, no problem at all. The hot cable just comes down here. It'll come down behind the air cleaner and go to there. We'll see how it is. If I don't like stuff that it's touching or whatever, I can always reroute it or something, but I think we'll be okay. Now, first thing we got to do with nothing turned on is just close the battery. And firstly, we want to make sure there's no movement on the amp meter when we do that. And that's good. So that there's no leaks happening. So we'll just leave that sit for a minute. Make sure everything looks good. We're going to make sure that the ignition is off. Yeah, good. No power there. We're going to look for power at the alternator stud. Yeah, we got power there. Good. Okay. Now we're going to flick the ignition on and look for our charge light. Aha! All right. Good. Now we're going to look for juice at the coil. Man, this loader makes all this fun. And we got juice at the coil. Good. Okay, that all seems to be good. We'll turn that off. Now we're going to... Oh, here. Our horn doesn't seem to work. It could be that switch. I wondered about that switch because it's been outside for so long. Let's see. We got power to it. Let's see when we operate the switch if we've got anything coming out. Yeah. Oh, we got a little something out. Look at that. Well, it's slowly coming to life. Okay, so we've got power coming out of it. Okay, we'll work on that. Let's go down by the horn and see what we can see. Okay. Now we got to check the lights. So the first click, I should have power there to our headlight feed and power at 2 of these prongs on our extension cord back here. Let's see. Yeah, got power there. And 2 of these should be live. There's 1, there's 2, and that one ought to be dead. So now when we pull it the rest of the way, these should still be live. Yeah, these should still be live. And now this should be live. Yep, look at that. It'll have a hard time flashing now because there's not enough load on it. But there it goes. Okay. So that's that. Now we'll see if she cranks over. Yep, perfect. Now we'll put some fuel in it, see if she'll crank up and make sure it's going to charge. Okay, here we go. There's fuel in it. Let's see if she'll crank up. Get a little throttle. Ignition on. That was interesting. Do I have the firing order wrong? Huh. Let's try again. start it up. It's sort of got oil pressure, 10. Oh boy. And it's charging. So all seems to be okay. I think it's running out of gas. There. Good. It quit and the charge light comes on. That's something. Okay, let's try and start this thing up again. So this is what I did last time. I had a hard time getting the charge light to go off. But it finally did go off. There it goes. Start slowly, slowly. There. It slowly goes off. This might not be the healthiest alternator in the world. But it'll do for now. Sometimes they just get like dirty brushes and stuff in them. But she's running. That's the two-stroke gas, I hope. We'll just let her run till she quits. The alternator gauge is starting to slowly come back down to 0 now as it charges the battery up. Oh boy. Oh, sounds like we ran out of gas. Okay, that's it for that one. She's back up and running and is sort of charging. If we have to, we'll swap the alternator out later. It's not that big a deal. I got lots of them. Anyway, that'll do it for now. I'd like to thank you for coming out to check out the Claremont Classic Garage. I hope you'll come and see us again soon. Till then, I'm Kevin saying so long for now.